Introduced predators are a huge threat to New Zealand's farming economy and natural environment. Every year, these predators kill an estimated 25 million of our native birds. Rodents and possums can spread diseases that can affect livestock, pets and human health. They can quickly spoil food supplies, contaminate water, destroy electrical wiring and create all kinds of invasive problems. Also, rats and mice reproduce at an alarming rate. Therefore, it is vital we maintain effective predator control.
Hi, my name's Hoi Marimo. I've been farming for over 35 years. I'm a self-employed contractor and I've been a professional hunter for the last 12 years. And this is Bill. We're here to talk about Pestoff.
Thanks, Hoi. Yeah, Pestoff's an excellent product to use, which provides a fairly wide margin of safety in farm situations, provided it's used according to label directions. We're in a situation here where we have rats, mice and possums at various seasons creating a problem, and there are ways in which we can deal with that.
Before we go into looking where we'd put the bait stations, should we talk a bit about the safety side of it? And I see you've got those gloves, I've got these ones. I prefer these because they're easier to pull on and off, but we'll go from here.
Yeah, either kind of gloves is fine, so long as they're impervious really. They do two things. They stop you coming into contact with the poison, but more importantly, they stop the rodents detecting your scent on the baits that you've laid. And if your scent's on the baits, then the rodents won't take the bait so readily. So it's a good thing to do, wear gloves for your own protection and to improve the outcome.
So let's talk about these bait stations, Bill. Where are they best used and how do they work?
Well, these three bait stations here are rodent bait stations. They have different qualities in terms of protecting livestock, people, pets and so on, and they have different capacities to repel weather. So this is a dead Rat Café. It's got the capacity to take a large number of blocks, but generally I'd suggest you'd only use 2 blocks per peg, or even 2 blocks for every second peg to start with.
You wouldn't start off filling the whole thing up, would you, Bill? Otherwise you're wasting baits, aren't you?
That's true. In fact, after a week or so of having bait out there, you'll get a feel for how many rats there are around quite quickly. If all the baits have gone within a matter of days, you'll probably want to increase the amount of bait. But the important thing is not to maintain the baiting for too long. 3 weeks is certainly, as a first pulse, is more than enough. And if all the blocks go within a week, then you'd probably want to double the number for the next 2 weeks.
What's this one?
This one's the Departure Lounge, another product from Pestoff. It's a much more secure bait station in as much as it's lockable, and you can protect access by perhaps children, pets and livestock, because they are quite determined things at times to try and get at that bait, which is exceptionally tasty and has an aroma that attracts rats and other animals. So it has a key, and the key basically, once locked, makes it impenetrable. And you can put 8 or 10 blocks in that bait station if you want to. Alternatively, you can use the small tray to put pellet baits in. The disadvantage of pellet baits is that animals can take them away and
store them up. Yeah. What about rain or water?
Okay, so these baits held in this bait station are up above any water that runs through the bait station, provided it's
not in the creek.
No, they're relatively weatherproof.
So what's this one, Bill? I see it's a bit different on the back. How does that one work?
Well, this is the Dirty Rat Motel, and it's another secure bait station with a bar, a mounting bar, which can be placed on a 4x2, fence post, tree, whatever you like, to keep it up off the ground where all the moisture is. That'll make your baits last longer and make them more attractive to rats. So once you've got the bar off, just mount it up, and this will slide back on when your baits are in there and hold the bait station up away from the ground.
Once you close it, it locks again, doesn't it?
It does indeed. So you'd fill your baits, put your baits in on the bait station bar, which I've done here, and once that's in place, you can close the bait station,
And it's locked.
And it's locked. Nothing can open that without this key.
So these bait stations are really easy to use and it protects your base from the weather, doesn't it, Bill?
Yes, the weather protection is an important aspect, but more important is protecting pets, livestock and people from accidental poisoning. And that is a requirement under the label directions, which is on every pack.
Pestoff has been used successfully for eradicating rodents on many of our bird sanctuary islands, and New Zealand's success as pioneers of rodent eradication programs has seen Pestoff used all over the globe. The goal of predator-free New Zealand by 2050 requires action from both public and private sectors. Nearly 70% of New Zealand land is privately owned, and there is only a limited range of control options available to the general public. So the use of Pestoff becomes a very important tool to control these pests. Pestoff brotificum has been particularly successful because of the delayed onset of poisoning symptoms. It takes a few days, and the pests don't associate their sickness with consuming the bait.
So talking about placement, Bill, we're trying to keep the rats away from the building, obviously. I'd put one in the corner there, but where else would you put them?
Well, I think your main source of infestation is going to be the likes of that lupin pine block there. And during the summertime, of course, when rodents breed, you're going to get quite a number of animals there. But in March, April, when things get colder, they're going to be looking for better shelter.
They don't like open ground, do they? So they'll be following fence lines or somewhere where there's cover.
That's precisely right. In fact, rodents use fence lines and walls and things for navigation because they have such poor eyesight. So ideally, you'd place half a dozen bait stations along that boundary on the tree side of the fence.
That's to keep it safe from animals?
Absolutely. And keep those bait stations serviced at sort of monthly intervals during that April, May period, certainly into winter. And that'll prevent most of the immigration from that block affecting your building sites and so on. But you might also place within the building structure itself 3 or 4 bait stations for those that do slip through the barrier, if you like.
I think it's important that you can get to the bait stations. You see people put bait stations in there, right under the trees. If you can't access them easily, they don't get done.
That's right. That's why the fence line, which is walked by stock and usually has a track along it, is such a good place to put the bait stations. So what I'm going to do here, Hoy, is I'm going to preload these bait stations and I'll carry those over to the fence line and place them in where they're going. It's much easier to load your bait stations in advance, and certainly that saves a bit of time because sometimes it's not as easy to work in the area you're going to place the bait stations.
I'm going to load this one while you're doing your one.
That's fine. So I put 2 blocks per wire into the dead Rat Café, and I'm only going to fill 2 of those wires initially to see what's there in terms of rodent activity.
I'll put 3 in. Looks like a shish kebab.
So there's 4 blocks. That's enough probably to kill 20 rats. And having done that, you can close your bait stations up. If you really want extra security with a Pestoff Dead Rat Café, you can put a couple of cable ties around these wasted parts of the bait station, and that'll prevent anything from getting in there that you don't want to get in there.
So how far apart will we be putting those bait stations, Bill?
Should be around about 30 metre spacings, unless you've got a very, very high rodent density, in which case you might tighten that up to 15 metres between bait stations.
Where would we put one in here, Bill? We're in a shed. Would you put the one that you can bolt to the wall, or would you put this one?
Well, you could use the Dead Rat Café here, provided you don't need a secure bait station. And the ideal place to put that is on that floor plate.
Okay, Bill, we're here. We're next to these maize silage stacks, and we have a problem with rats getting into the maize, putting holes in it, and spoiling it. How do we go about it?
Well, actually, it's very hard to deal with rats once they arrive here because they habituate to eating maize so quickly. And once they're here and eating maize, you won't be able to present any bait to them that's as palatable as the fresh maize or fermenting maize.
So that's why when I put baits out later on in the season, it hasn't worked.
That's exactly it. You really are fighting an uphill battle to try and stop them eating the maize and getting them to eat baits.
You can smell the maize, can't you? It
I
smells
can,
quite nice.
absolutely. Yeah, and the rats can smell that from a long, long way away. They've got a much more acute nose than we have. The only answer, Hoy, I think, is to bait about 200 to 300 metres back into the cover 2 months before the maize is going to be harvested and arrives here. You've got to get in early with rats on maize silage stacks. Just watch that hot wire there, Hoy.
You'll know when I touch it.
Yeah.
So we'll be looking at putting the bait station 300 metres back from the stack. That's a long way. That puts us way down there and all the way around. There's so much cover, isn't there?
Yes, that's right, Hoy, and I'd say you'd probably want 20 metre spacings between your bait stations along the fence line inside that tree block there.
Yes.
And don't underestimate the extent to which the pine tree seed itself contributes to rat diet, because that'll sustain a really good population through the summer, and they're all going to come shopping at your place during the winter.
Well, if you run a thermal through that at night, it's surprising how many rats are in there. So would you bother putting bait stations along here, Bill, right next to the stack?
No, I don't think you would. The rats are, as I say, going to be habituated to eating that maize, and they're not going to be interested in your baits at this point. If you want to start baiting close to the stack, do it 50 metres away at least.
Okay, Bill, we're around the house now. We're trying to keep possums away from fruit trees, from gardens, from all sorts of trees around the house. How do we go about it?
Well, this is Pestoff Brodificum possum bait, Hoy. It's very easy to use for possum control in conjunction with a bait station like that one you're holding. It's got a cinnamon lure which attracts possums from some way away.
The foolproof bait station's also white, and it sort of draws their attention.
That's correct.
Put this up.
Anything like a white rag or a white bait station will draw the attention of possums.
Gloves on, as per usual, safety. Just tip the station up around to there, pour it in. So you put the plate back in, put the raised bit on the bottom so that the bait doesn't fall out. It all just clicks in nice and simple. When you turn it back, the baits won't fall out because that raised bit is there. I'll pull my glove off because I'm not very coordinated, and we'll nail it so it doesn't move. And that won't move. Possum will come up, put his head in, and it should be safe from dogs, cats, etc.
If you were concerned, Hoy, about stock or pets getting access to that,
I'd put it up higher.
you could put it up a bit higher.
Yeah. But we don't have that problem here, so it's down low where it's easier to see.
So if this was a hedgerow or shelter belt, something like that, you'd probably want one of those bait stations around every 100 metres, and you'd put about 700 grams in each bait station. I think in this situation, 700 grams initially, and in all situations you need to refill after about a week any bait that's taken, and then watch that, see if it's gone, and when that's gone, say 3 weeks later,
Fill it up again.
fill it up once more as a final time, and we call that a single pulse. In other words, the pulse period involves 3 fills over 1 month. Then you would leave the bait station empty and refill it perhaps 2 months later.
Okay, Bill, in the winter we have a bit of a problem with mice.
Oh, whereabouts exactly?
Around the fridges and freezers mostly, in here and over there. Dog tucker freezers.
They'll be coming in here, Hoy, because of the warmth that they get from the motors on the fridge and freezers. At home we've had the same problem with mice under the fridge and stove in the kitchen. So the idea would be to put some bait in there early on in the winter and try and deal with the problem, I guess.
I think the dead Rat Café is the one for here. It can slide down there nicely. And it's out of the way.
That looks great.
Thanks for watching. Pestoff can be used safely and effectively by most landowners to eradicate rats, mice and possums, and is available at your local farm store.